Okej. Då är vi live. Ska vi se. Vi är igång. So, welcome to Dadpreneur Revolution podcast and live stream. This is the second interview, and we are here to support dads and dadpreneurs to level up their life, to change the definition of how it is to be a provider from a guy that shows up with the cash and checks out in the family to a guy that shows up both with physical presence, emotional presence, financially, and with inspired leadership. And today we have a super amazing guy with us that I met, I think, maybe 4 years ago on an event where we both leveled up how we lived as men. Anyway, that's how it was for me. And Jørgen has his own story about that. And Jørgen is an amazing man that I've been following for many years, and he's one of these guys that have shown a consistency, that consistently show up with a desire to support guys and men and children to live better lives. And I'm really touched with anyone that shows up consistently over years. It takes a lot to do that. The expression might change, but it's showing up over and over again with a good connection, with a good heart. So quickly about Jørgen, and the introduction is that he works as a consultant with transformational leadership and organizational development. And he's been working with men and been in men's groups for almost 20 years. So really connecting with men in many different ways, and now also leading Rites of Passage. I'm really excited to hear more about that. And he also offers weekends where he supports dads and parents and children to deepen and connect their relationship stronger. So it's great to have you here, Jørgen. Thank you so much for showing up. Welcome. Hey.
Hi there, Matthias. I'm happy that you invited me for this conversation. I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you. Thank you. Epic. So let's hit it off with something I call the fast five. So it's basically we do some quick checking questions, and then we go into the bit deeper stuff. Are you ready?
I'm so ready.
Epic. So could you share with me some of your morning and day routine that you do to keep you on point, to make sure that you are living life in the best possible way?
What are some points? I make sure that I have time in the morning after I wake up, before I have to go to work, where I have time just for myself. So I have a morning practice where I either do yoga, I meditate, or feel into some part that is important for me at that time. I also have regular meetings with my men's group. We meet every 2 weeks. That's an important part of my life, an important routine to keep me on track. And then I regularly ask myself the question, am I doing, what am I most passionate about doing? I think that's the question. And am I doing that as much as I can at the moment? And then I may tweak and change something here or there. So for instance, now this year I have led 3 father and son weekends, and I want to do more of it. So now I'm hiring a coach to support me in getting out further. And then the last thing I do every day actually is that when I lie in my bed just before falling asleep, I think of 3 things that I'm grateful for having happened that day. So that's how I end every day before I fall asleep.
Beautiful. Can you tell me, what was the last time that you laughed until you cried, or when you cried until you started laughing?
Well, I don't think I've cried till I have laughed. So that's a short answer. But the last time, I've just been at a men's retreat in Norway, where we had a thing, like a parliament. It was a Viking retreat, so we had a kind of a parliament where we would take up conflicts or things that we needed to discuss in the whole group. And there I laughed as I hadn't laughed for a long time. So that's just 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. And can you share with me what actions or say non-action that makes you feel most alive?
think it's several things. So one thing is that the time in the morning or when I come home where I connect with myself through meditation or yoga. I've always been kind of thinking that I need to perform in order to be okay as a man. And that silence where I meditate and connect with myself, or the yoga where I connect with my body in a very beautiful way, that is one thing that connects me. Something else is when I'm simply with, mostly actually it's with my men's group, or on my father retreats where the men are talking together. When we share together, that's another, it's really powerful when you have men together. It's also powerful when there's women together, but it's special and unique when it's only men. And in those in those situations, that's where I also connect to something deeper and important inside of me.
Yeah. And can you share something about what makes you angry, like in the world or in your everyday, and how you express when you're angry at that point or later point?
So anger for me is a feeling that comes if I feel misunderstood, or if I feel unrightfully judged, then I will get angry. And sometimes I don't express it because I connect with the need in me that wasn't met, because sometimes it's not beneficial for the world that I just throw out my anger because I'm angry in this situation. So sometimes I go back and connect deeper with the need in me instead of posing out my anger. But at other times I can snap, or I can get angry with the person in front of me. And if I do so, sometimes if I kind of was making them responsible for my feelings, then usually I would need to come back later and clear it so that I take responsibility for my part of it. But then it would, anger could just be, hey, stop that, or this is not okay. But actually, it's a good question you ask, because right now I'm in a process of separating my anger from aggression, and it's a challenge for me to express clean anger. There's usually some sort of aggression in there where I'm kind of hitting or sending arrows at the person that I'm in the situation with, and that's not cool in my world. So I would like to separate those, and I haven't come to that point of having a clean separation yet, but that's something I'm working on.
Could you share quickly what is actually separation? Because that's the first time I ever hear the separation from the aggression and the anger. So what are these two that you are working on to separate clearly?
So anger for me, clean anger for me would be that there's something, for instance, my godson, if he's running, running out in front of a car or something, then I would need to be very, very forceful and get his attention and get him back off the street, off the road. But when there's aggression in there, when that is in the mix, then I'm making him wrong. Then I'm making the other person, it's like I have these fierceful eyes where you're the reason for I'm hurting right now. And that, I think, is that's not a true way of being in the world. So I'm doing what I can to get that part of aggression out so I can be responsible for me. And should some people step in over my boundaries, well, then I will let them know, but I'm responsible. I will be responsible for my part in the situation. So it's not that I'm a doormat. I will let people know when they trespass. It's just that I would like to not send arrows out in the world.
Yeah. That's beautiful. I resonate a lot with that message, and I work with this, like it's a quadrant where it's like working with in a like conflict. If am I wrong? Am I okay or am I not okay? And the other person, do I think that he or she is okay or not okay? So the biggest pain place is, of course, when I judge myself to not be okay and I judge the other person not be okay. Like it's total misery, it's total suffering. And then I have this a lot with my young oldest daughter. And then when I switch that, it's like, okay, but actually, okay, she's doing something stupid right now, but she's okay. I think she's okay. I come from love to her. And then I can be angry, as you say, but I'm not like attacking her and judging her. And actually, I can be angry, but it's such a shift, because when I'm not having that aggression, I don't experience that I creating trauma. But as soon as I have the aggression, it's like afterwards I can just see this trauma expanding in her and making my own hurt like become her hurt instead. And that's really painful.
Yeah, that ends up as trauma. And another way of saying it, Matthias, I can follow your way of your perspective also. Another way I see it is with parents, or when I'm with children. And another really important aspect with parents and their children is that when they step over the line, the children, that you as a parent make it very clear to them that you love them as a person and you always will. And what the action they're doing right now, that is not okay. So you separate the action from the person. And I have never learned how to do that. I've always, stop, Jørgen. I've always been the one being made wrong. So that's something I'm wanting to clear out in my way of dealing in the world. So.
Beautiful. Yeah, thank you for leading that and stepping up. That's huge. So let's dive in. So now we have had our check-in. So I'm really curious to hear your best advice to yourself when you were 28 years old. So if you would look back and meet you when you were 28, what would you tell yourself to live an even better life than you've lived so far? What would you wish that you knew when you were 28 that you didn't know?
28. So something I would have loved to know at that time is that I cannot fail, that I simply just give all I got. I do the things that I'm passionate about and I give it everything. And the notion of failing or winning or losing, it's a bogus. It's like, so I've just learned from a wise man that, the winning and losing, if we can look at it from a different perspective than I've been taught. Usually there's a winner and a loser, and the winner can laugh at the loser because he's now better than him. And instead of that perspective, that's what I grew up with. Then I saw the opportunity, or learned the opportunity of seeing it as a learning opportunity. So it could be the same with Messi and Ronaldo when they play football together. That they go into the match, Barcelona, Real Madrid, whatever, they go into the match they want to get the best out of each other. Yeah. And then the one who ends up so-called losing, he needs to look at what are the areas that he can improve so that next time he potentially will be winning. So there are 3 parameters. There's the physical, forceful side, there's the technical side, and then there's the energetic side, my perspective, how my energy is around it. Am I putting myself down, or am I getting back up on the horse again? Am I looking for new opportunities, stuff like that? So which of these 3 parameters do I need to change a little bit the next time I try? And that's also what the so-called winner will be looking at. So he won this time, and what was it that worked so well this time, so that he can learn to the next time he's in a fight or in a match or whatever. And that is something I'm bringing onto the father and son weekends, for instance, because so many, and also girls for that matter, so many children haven't learned to this game of winning and losing. They think it's everything. They have to perform in school. They have to be really good and get great exams. And if they don't, they almost panic. And, so many people have exam anxiety, especially in Denmark. I don't know how it is in the rest of the world. And that comes down to them not having learned to play and be in competition in a healthy way, where you look at, I'm going to do my best, and then I'm going to learn from it so that next time it can be potentially even better.
Can you share, how did you come to realize this for yourself? What was the experience that made it click for you?
Well, I simply I called a guy who I knew has a lot of, he's doing a PhD, or he's doing some sort of, he's been working a lot with the physical fighting, physical exercises between parents and their kids and grown-ups. And so I called him prior to one of my father and son weekends just to see. I had an hour with him where I could interview him and learn from him. And this was one of the aspects that he brought to the table that I instantly just, yes, this is kind of what I've been looking for. And this is one of the things that I would love to bring on to the people that I have on my weekends and my retreats.
Could you share like a process or challenge or relationship or event that has triggered the most amount of growth in your life? So it could be an event that when you had it, when you experienced this event, it's like, I'm about to give up. Life is over. And now, some years later, it's like, wow, that was epic. I'm so grateful for that challenge that now can see, with more clarity. Could you share such an event or process or relationship?
Well, for me, the two deepest areas of personal development in life is partnership, is in relationship between two adults, and the second one is from adult to a child. If I'm a father, then to a child. And now I'm not a father myself, but I have two godchildren, for instance, or when I deal with other children. So those are the two areas I find the most personal development in. And for me, I was married earlier in my life, and that was a big letdown for me and my ex-wife. Our hopes, we had wished to have kids together and live together the rest of our lives. That's why we married, and we gave each other our vows for that. And circumstances was such that we needed to split up, and that was a big blow for me. I had my whole life was kind of marinated around us living the rest of our life together, getting children. So when we split up, I felt really lost. I didn't know who I was. I had actually lost myself in the relationship more than I would have liked to. I had lived more for what we want than knowing what I want, and then finding out how that works out with we also. So it was a tough journey after my divorce, and I actually moved to India and lived in India in 2009. And a big part of my living there was to simply heal and have a lot of time to keep asking myself the question, okay, so what's important for me now? So I could get back into, simply knowing, get clarity on what's important for me. What do I want to have done and been through before I die, and then start to set my life up in order to meet that need. So that's one of my relationships that end where I had hoped them to be obviously a lot longer. So that's one example.
Could you share what you can see today that it's like a big gift from this? Like what's your now takeaway? Like what's your harvest from this experience and this kind of unwanted, undesired separation?
Well, one of the harvests is, as I said, that one of the reasons for us needing to divorce was that I had left myself. I had lived more for us than having had me in the game. So I had been more interested in what she wanted and not really listening in with myself. So for instance, I was working in the Middle East at the time, 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. And then when I was home between the job, I was working quite hard down there, long hours. And then I came home, had supposedly 2 weeks off. And there I would be renovating our apartment and our friend's apartment. And actually several times my woman at the time, she said, "Hey, Jørgen, why don't you take a weekend off and go out in the woods as she knows I love?" And I said, no, I need to, we need to be finished with the house and it's fine and everything is good. And I simply wasn't in contact with myself at that time. It was really wise of her to advise me to go out in the woods and have time for myself. But I wasn't there to actually do that. Maybe I think I would have twinged and not been able to really enjoy the time in the woods because I was so much into doing everything right in the apartment and stuff like that. So that's one learning for me, to have myself in the game, to know where am I, and then from there on I can cooperate with my woman or with the people I'm with, whether it's my men's group or wherever I am. So that's a learning, that don't, to know myself, know thyself.
Yeah, beautiful. Could you share like the number one truth or insight that you've had in your life, that if everyone around the world would know this insight, this truth, this realization that you've had, you believe that the world would be an even better place to live?
Well, one truth that I see around me every day is, it's something that I was inspired by from a company that I worked for some years ago, and it's a model called relationship as the foundation of accomplishment. So the stronger relationships, the deeper relationships we have, the more we can accomplish. And I see that very much as a truth everywhere in the world. The less relationship, the less trust we have, more wars and more conflicts we have, and the more relationship, the more trust we have, the easier it is to deal with our challenges. And that goes, that's both on a micro level but also on a macro level. I see that everywhere. And it's also my relationship to things. So my relationship to this interview, my relationship to the media, my relationship to Trump or politics, and I can be a victim, or I can be someone who takes responsibility and goes for creating what I believe in, rather than just complaining that others should do something different.
And how do you see, what is it like a good input to approach a new situation or a circumstance or a challenge or a relationship to kind of make it start off for good? You spoke about taking personal responsibility, but what are other like fundamentals in this relationship that sets us off for success?
I didn't get your question, Matthias.
Sure,
so
sure.
Are you asking to deepen this model of that I'm talking about?
Could you share some insight of what is the good foundation in this relationship to make sure that the outcome is positive, both for the relationship and for like process that the relationship is designed to achieve?
Well, you can see it I have it in my work, and I see it in a family, for instance. So if a family, a mother and father, let's say they have 2 children, that's a conventional, let's just say that, and they want, the children are becoming teenagers, and they are starting, or it could also be younger children for that matter. When the child has wishes and needs, then the parents can say no, and just say no because I say so, or they can start to make, if they manage to make the child or teenager feel important and feel listened to, then it's a lot easier. It may be an ice cream, it may be they want to go here or there on vacation, or it doesn't matter really which situation it is. It's more the matter that both parties feel seen and heard and valued. And many times I actually see parents, they overrule their children. They don't listen to them the way where the child could have been listened to. And then the child, as a result of that, the child acts out more than it needed to. And then you have the conflict going. Yeah, then it becomes this downward going spiral. So, and in a work environment, that's what I work with on a daily basis. I work with safety. How do I get a big project to actually build the thing? Right now it's a metro, but it could be, I've been working on oil and gas projects before. How can we build this refinery with all of us coming home safely to our families afterwards? Well, that takes a lot of relationship. That takes a lot of people being responsible for what they're doing. And that really works. So if you have, several you have an entrepreneurial company, you have subcontractors, for them, usually they would enter a project just thinking about how can I get most money out of this. But if we change the game and have all of the subcontractors and the contractor and the client, have that leadership meet and find out, okay, so we're actually one team. How can we have a situation where all of us win together? So what do you need from me in order to win? What do I need from you? And stuff like that. So this is where relationship as a foundation of accomplishment also comes in a work life situation. And it's amazing what you can accomplish if you let go of just holding your cards to yourself and actually involving people around you. So you're approaching work as if you're one team, even though you come from different companies, where all of us win together. So what do you need from me in order to win? What do I need from you? And stuff like that.
Yes. It was some disconnection there. Do you hear me?
I hear you, yeah. I just heard myself being played back. So
yeah,
maybe you lost some of what I said.
Yeah. So, yeah, but I really resonate with this, that the power of the teamwork, like in so many situations, it's like conflict appears, and the reason for the whole conflict is just because there's not awareness of the basic needs and the desires of both or all the parties. And just by reforming and rephrasing, like what does each party actually want, there's like there are basically not even parties. They're just a group of people coming from a little bit different places, but actually the outcome and desires are all the same. And like to shift it from like if it's with my wife or kids or in business, like actually we have the same desire. If we find effective partnerships, that's all what we can do. And to find these kind of collaborations makes it so much more fun and easier. And I see that a lot, like in business, what we need to do is actually not find clients that we need to convince. If we need to convince the clients, we have already lost. But there are actually clients in small business and also big business, I believe, that actually are looking for us as service or product providers much more than we are looking for the clients. And if we just find those people and make sure that they find us, or if it's in love relationship, it's the same. Like we don't need to be desperate. There are actually people out there that really desire our connection. If we like relax and open up to that, amazing things can happen really, really quickly. Beautiful. So could you share something about me? You've been active in men's group for 20 years. I've been doing men's group work for maybe 7 years or something like that. And it's totally changed my life. Could you share some what you've realized and found about both yourself and also similarities that you see, like, okay, I'm more similar to other men than I thought I was? And also, what is the biggest challenge you see that men has? So it's like a 3-part question.
So I got 2 of them. So what's an insight I've had through the men's work?
Exactly.
And what is the challenge men are having these days?
Yeah.
Those 2 ones.
If you realize the way that you're more similar to other men than you thought years ago.
Well, I realized a long time ago, which was a great relief actually, that me thinking that I'm bad here and bad there, and here I'm not performing, and here I'm not good enough, and all that jazz. Usually, it turns out that many of us men, we walk around with many of the same issues and challenges and feelings and hopes and lost hopes and all that stuff. So that's one thing where I've seen that, and that's a great relief to be in a men's group where I can share that and see that, wow, I'm not alone. I'm not the only one going through this or having gone through this. Let me see, an insight or something that I've gotten out of the men's groups is that I was part of when David Data started his Scandinavian tour, I think late 1999 or 2000s, something like then. That's where he started to come to Scandinavia. I was assisting him for a while there, and something that touched me with his work was that I had been a very, very soft man, not very, more in touch with my feminine side than with my masculine side. And something that really got me is the part of integrity and clarity. So I spoke about that before, getting to know who I am and what is important for me in life and stand for that. And then integrity, that I would like people to see me as someone that they can trust. That if I say I do something, then I do it, and if I can't do it, then I'll get back to them and say, hey, I can't do it. I can do it then instead, or make a counter offer or something like that. So I'm responsible for the agreements that I make, and that is something that I find is extremely relaxing with the men I have around me. That many of them are very trustable, and it's just such a relief to know that I can lean on the men around me. That's something I love them for. And of course, sometimes we're out of integrity, and that's where we need each other to be called back and say, hey, this was not okay. And then I get a chance to apologize or say I'm sorry or take care of that situation.
Yeah.
Also, something else, I think that was at least 2 of them. It's
good. And then, do you see any like big challenge that men has in common as like a big group? If we simplify, what is the main issue, main challenge that men has these days?
There are several challenges for men these days. One I think is this, and my feeling is that we're getting better at it. But my thing is that many of us men, we sometimes lack the clarity emotionally. So we can feel something inside, but we don't immediately have the words to accompany the feelings. So if I'm in a quarrel or in a conflict with my girlfriend, then something I have learned through my relationships is that sometimes it takes me half an hour, half a day, or 2 days to have the words connected to what I'm feeling. And before I had this insight, I lost pretty much all my conflicts. Or unless I got, strong enough or aggressive enough that she would just bow down or something like that. But usually I would lose my conflicts because I didn't have the words. I could just feel that there was more, but I didn't have the words for it. And I see that in many men that it's a really powerful thing to look at your woman or look at the situation. Maybe it's your boss and say, do you know what? I really want to talk about this and I don't have the words right now. So I'll come back to you when I have the words, So then pause it for half an hour, half a day, or 2 days, whenever your words come back. And then, of course, you're in integrity. So you come back and say, okay, now I'm ready to continue. And I think a lot of men could use that in their daily lives, because women are trained much earlier in discussing. And this is not that women are bad at all. This is just, I just see that this is a general thing. Not all women are good at this, and not all men are bad at this. So this is just I'm generalizing here. But mainly women tend to be better with words than men. Yeah, so that's a generalization, but that's my experience. And it would be beautiful for that relationship between men and women, that the man learns to just, be responsible for when he has the words and not have to have the conflict exactly in that moment when he doesn't have the words.
I really love that. We did, before we went on, we did a check-in. And the check-in we did was the like sensations in the body, because I really resonate with that, like to really be clear with what's actually going on, what is actually true and what is not true. And with that, I feel like we all have the same movement in our body, like feel locked or feel tense or feel it feels fun, it feels bubbly, it feels open, it feels closed, it's hard, or it's painful, or it's it's pleasurable. Like because when we have to translate it into like, it feels, I'm happy, or it feels good, or these kind of things, then we are abstracting it so much. But on the playing field, it's like, actually I feel a tension here, or I feel pain here, or I feel a lot of movement in this location. If we just like focus on the body as a place where energy is moving, then it becomes so much easier. And I do the practice when I'm stuck with my wife. We quite often go into like, okay, what's true now? The only thing that is true now is, my solar plexus is really hurt. Like, it's really hard. I feel really cramped up there. Like, maybe that's the only thing I know. But if I like take 3 breaths, I always know what's going on in my body. Maybe not the depth, not everything, I know a couple of things, and that I find it such a powerful way to relate to another person. Because if I say my chest is tight, I believe every person in the earth knows how it is to have a tight chest. It's like, and like that we can connect immediately, or like I feel a lot of excitement in my shoulders, you know, and it's like equals the playing field in a beautiful way, without me actually understanding what is going on or why it's happening. Like just
and I get, Matthias, that focus of yours, that that pulls you out of the conflict, the word conflict, and into your body, what you're feeling. That will help you as a stepping stone to get back into the conversation with your wife, with more what is true and not true for you. Yeah, so I think it sounds beautiful what you're doing.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. So can you share some? You said you have had 3 weekends. Is that true this year?
Yes.
And you have one coming up soon. But could you share with us what is happening during these weekends, and how we as parents can deepen our relationship with our kids? If you have some like practical strategies you can share that you're working with, or some other ideas so really we can deepen our connection.
So if I start with the weekends, the weekends, I have been very much inspired. For many years in my life, I've been wanting to support young people in having a solid foundation in their lives, because I didn't have that when I was young. So I have a passion to support the young ones these days to have that. So I've had that for many years. And a few years ago, I met my current mentor, Arne Rubinstein. He has what is called the Rites of Passage Institute in Australia, and he's been working with Rites of Passage and father-son, mother-son, father-daughter, mother-daughter relationships for more than 25 years. And so a lot of my inspiration comes from him, actually. I went down to visit him 3 weeks last year and joined some of his projects. So some of what happens in the weekends, the purpose there is to simply bring the father and son, or the parent and the child, deeper in their relation and strengthen their relationship. And we do that by having a lot of games. So they play together, and we have some conversations about usually topics that they not necessarily are used to talking about in their relationship. And then also sometimes the father get to tell stories from when he was in the age of his children. And so this is not rocket science. These are things that everyone does and everyone can do. It's just a matter of consistency. So, it's actually really interesting for most children to listen to their parents share the stories from when the parents were in their age. Where did they go wrong? Where did they get scolded? Or how did they have fun? How was they mischievous? What happened when they were mischievous when they were children? And, all these stories that they can share is really good for the children to listen to. And then vice versa. That also brings in the perspective that the father and the mother can listen for the stories of the children. So it could be at school or wherever, whatever stories they have. How was their experience? And so storytelling is something that is extremely important in the relationship and deepening of between the parent and the child, because the children will get that it's normal to sometimes feel sad. It's normal to sometimes feel angry or, unfairly treated or whatever. You can be afraid of the future. You can be afraid of failing, all these different feelings that all of us have tried many times. So sharing the stories will teach the children that these feelings are okay. And then it helps the children to put words on exactly those experiences in their lives when the space is there for it. And that means that the parents need to create a frame where that can happen. So obviously no telephones, no screens, no television, where you're actually present with your child and nothing else is happening other than the conversation. Maybe you're walking in nature. Maybe you're sitting around a fireplace or in your garden or wherever. Yeah. But it's like creating that space where you have focus on being with each other. So that's one thing that we're focusing on in these weekends. So there's a great mix of, we will not be talking more, maximum 1 hour, 1.5 hours at maximum. And then there will be at least half an hour of games, of playing and using the body, and a little competition and stuff like that. We'll be wrestling and using our force. And, boys and girls love to use their force. And many places in most of the Western societies, especially for boys, but also for girls, they're not made for boys, these institutions, both the kindergarten, the school system. The boys, they can't really fight. They can't really use their force. They're told to be quiet, to not climb the walls, to sit still, to listen, to read from this page to that page. And it's like, that's so many boys don't learn that way in the best way. Some do, but not all. And so this is one of the challenges, that we are creating a lot of boys and therefore men that are detached from their wild side, from their force, from their power, from a healthy power. And then look at the world today, how many men are out there competing with each other, stealing from each other, trying to just do me. If just I get rich, fuck the rest, all that stuff. Yeah. Look at some of the leaders in our world, and I don't have to say much more. Yeah. So that's what comes out of men not having a healthy relationship with their power and their force.
Yes.
If you ask me, this may not be the truth, but that's how I see it.
I see very much of the same movements, and it's really like, no matter what age it is, we really need to support men, children, and in all ages to connect to their power, because all the other wounds happen from, as I see, like a man that is not in connection with his heart and his powers. That's why women and children get hurt, is because of most actually men that are not in connection with this, that is really working really hard, trying really hard to fulfill their power, but is actually truly disconnected from it and are desperate to get back to it. And that's really scary.
So the deep core of these parent-child weekends is that there's only one parent and one child on each weekend. Even though the parent have twin boys or twin girls or two children, there's only one child per parent. And that is, so through the whole weekend, the child can bathe in this parent's attention. And that is a very rare opportunity in this world, with everything that goes on in school and after school and with all our gadgets and stuff like that. So this is just, that in itself is special and is helping creating a deeper connection between the child and the parent. And then we also go into, look, we support, we see this, you see the strengths of the child. One child will, when we have lunch, I saw a 9-year-old notice that there were no more water on the table, so he took one of the water cans and went out and put water in it and brought it back. And just acknowledging the child for having that overview, that thinking for others than himself, is just beautiful. So there's so many things, some of the boys and girls, they love helping with the fire. And so through these weekends, we find places where the strength of the children come forth, and we acknowledge them so that they really feel seen and heard and loved in their element. And all children, have beautiful strengths, and no children have them all. Yeah. So it's about finding which strengths and beautiful sides and strong sides does this child have. It's different from all the other children, but we need to support in each different child their unique strengths. So
yeah, success builds on success. That is so powerful, no matter what relationship or person it is, for sure. We need to expand and acknowledge that infinitely. So you mentioned rite of passage. So were we initiated together in the New Warrior Training Adventure?
We were, yeah. That's the Mankind Project.
The Mankind Project. So that's a beautiful rite of passage, really. I'm super grateful for that. And Could you share? You mentioned also quickly that you say did not grow up in like a safe environment. So could you share some of the like rites of passage that you see that you missed and that you suffered from, and a little bit what is a rite of passage and how does that work?
So, where shall I start? So, a rite of passage is a transition from one phase in your life to another phase in your life. So for instance, from a boy to a young man or a girl to a young woman. That's one transition. Another transition is when you go from being a young man and you have your first relationship. That could be a transition. It could also be that you're a man that gets married. So marriage is a transition. That when you go from being just in a couple to becoming a father, that's a transition. When you're becoming a grandfather, that's a transition. When you lose your job, when you get your first job, there's lots of these transitions along the way in our lives. Yeah. But if we focus on the teenage one, of going from being a boy or girl to becoming a young man and young woman. So all is a big word. So most of our ancient cultures, being Aborigines, Maoris, in South American Mayans, North American Indians, African tribes, everywhere around the world, they managed to find out that in exactly the same time, in the teenage years, when the boys or girls are around 12, 13, they need a rite of passage into their adulthood. And all these cultures, obviously, they didn't have the internet, they didn't have telephones to share, hey, let's agree that this is a good time to do this. They just by themselves found out that this is the best time. Yeah, so there's a power in that we in the West pretty much have lost connection with. Yeah, so that's one of the reasons why I find it extremely important to be part of bringing this back into the Western world and back into Denmark, supporting our boys and girls to becoming young men and young women. And so there's a difference between, if you look at a boy and how a boy acts in the world, there's quite a big difference from what a healthy young man and a young woman acting in the world. So for instance, some of the differences are that, a boy will be, he feels, and a girl, they feel that the world is circling around them. They're the center of the universe. So you'll probably, my 7-year-old godson, he's forever saying, mother, see me. Yeah. So it's all about see me, see how I'm doing, see how great I am, and all that stuff. And this is where it's beautiful. So we need the mother and the father to see the child and say, wow, that's amazing, and whoa, it looks fun, and all that stuff, to mirror and acknowledge their excitement. And we can't have grown-up men and young men walking around in the world saying, see me all the time. Yeah. So when you become a young man, you learn that you're not alone in this world. It's not only about you. You're not the center of the universe. There's a tribe around you. There's a world around you. There's a society around you. And you and every one of us need to find our place in that society, because otherwise that society will not live. So all these different cultures, they knew that we need to find the specific strengths in each child such that they get to use those strengths such that our tribe can keep living. Yeah. So maybe there was a child that was really good with animals. Well, then they would get an animal kind of name, and they would be working with the animals as they grew up, or hunting, or finding food, or preparing food, or, finding your way through nature, or, there's all these kind of strengths and that our young ones could have. So if in the Western world, in Denmark, we have something called confirmation, which is based in the Christian church. It's a fine. That is a bit of a transition, because when you have done it, then we say welcome to the grown-ups, to the adult world. Yeah, and these days, again, I'm generalizing, but mostly it's about having a great party and getting great presents, and then they meet weekly in the church and have something that they learn in church. But the rite of passage in it, to the most part, for me, is missing in it. And a rite of passage consists of 3 phases. So the first phase is that we need to separate our children from their normal society, from the mother and the village, you can say. So you take the children away from the mother, away from the village. Yeah, so that's a separation, and that will be difficult both for the child, but also for the mother and the village. Mostly for the mother. Yeah, and now obviously we're talking about boys. And so that's the first thing, separation. Okay, so we're out in nature, we're separated from where we normally live our lives. Yeah, we have let's talk about father and son, because that's what's coming up here in October. We're doing a father and son rite of passage. So I'll be talking about father and son, but it will be similar for girl and women. Second phase is the transformation. So in that phase, it's all about, connecting with the other boys, connecting with the other fathers in the group that are in nature now, and in there, support the boys and girls to see things in their lives, things they need to let go of, and also challenge them in ways where they need their courage, they need to meet their loneliness, they need to meet their fears, and they need to find their way through that. Because for them to find their way through these things, these difficult emotions, the fathers being standing on the sideline supporting them, so we are there, and they need to walk through the door themselves. That is one of the strongest rite of passage elements that you can have, that the young ones, that the boys and girls, that they find their inner strengths and find that they can deal with this. They can manage this, even though it's difficult and it's scary at times and it's lonely at times. So that's so there will be, at the end of the middle phase there will be a challenge that they all will have to go through, and they will go through it, and they will be acknowledged for it afterwards. They will be seen in the challenge that they went through, and they will come out with glowing eyes, with, you see them stand, you see a totally different young man, from that point off. When they've come through the challenge, they're no longer a boy or a girl, they're a young man or young woman. And then the last phase is the homecoming, is the reintegration with the mother and the family and the village. And that also needs to be celebrated, because I guess many people in our world have tried to be on a personal development course, and it's been strong, it's been powerful. We've had so many insights, it's been amazing, it's been intense. And then we come home and nobody really knows what we've been through, and it can be very empty feeling to come home after such a retreat. And therefore, it's very easy to fall back into old patterns. So that's why the third phase is really important, that we get the village and the mothers and the uncles and the fathers to know what they've been through, these young men and women, and support them ongoingly in what they have, the insights they've had, and the way they want to live their life that they have come up with. Because otherwise, the biggest chance, there's too much of a risk that they will fall back into the old patterns of a boy, and then we're not much further than when we were before the event. So it's those are the 3 phases in a rite of passage, and it's just amazing to see the difference. That suddenly these young men and women, they're met with being a young man and a woman, and they're met with that we see you as an equal, and because now you're an adult. Not that we're not equal in our relationship with our children, but I hope you get what I mean. So they've come into the adult world now with more privileges, and that means they also need to take more responsibility. So those two go hand in hand, privileges with responsibilities. And so for them to see that it's actually really powerful for me to be responsible and be more responsible for my maybe younger siblings, or doing my homework so that I can have a good school and have the education I want, so I can have the family I want and live the place I want and all that stuff. Yeah, so it's really powerful for them for that transition. And so many men in our current world haven't been through that, and therefore you see men competing with each other, men not being able to contain their own feelings. They throw the responsibility for what they feel on their partners or their bosses or their colleagues or their friends, whatever. So those are examples of traits in men and women where we haven't grown from being boys and girls. And, you know, all of us still have those traits in us. The only difference is that the more aware you are, the quicker you can catch yourself and spend less and less time in the boy and girl inside of you. Because you know, I also say me at times in my life. And, you know, my job is to be in that place as little as possible for the benefit of the rest of the world, actually, and myself.
Could you share some, because you mentioned the process of boys, and you said that it's slightly different. Boys are very much me in their childhood. Could you share what is how you define the girl? Where does she go from, and where does she go to in this process?
Well, girls are taught to be, you know, we're speaking generally now, yeah. So there will be many differences. But many girls are taught to be nice girls, to behave well, and all that stuff. Pretty much like boys also are. So they also leave their power, you know, suppress their power. And so it's also a process for a girl to not be a nice girl, not to be, you know, behaving nicely and sitting with nice, flätningar, braids all the time. They can also, you know, be boyish or be wild and stuff like that. So it's a similar process for girls to find out what, you know, that who they are. It's so welcome here, and we need to find their strengths, you know. And all girls will have different strengths, just like the boys. And that's the job of the grandparents and the parents and the uncles and, you know, the family around and the friends around to see and mirror that, so that these girls can grow up and be healthy young women. What we see is that girls or teenage girls and young women that have a strong and healthy relationship with a father, they will tend to have a somewhat later sexual debut than girls that haven't gotten a strong relationship with a father. So they, so they're more out looking for that affirmation from the masculine outside of themselves rather than having it inside, because they have had a strong relationship with their father. So this period in our teenagers' lives, it's extremely important that we have present fathers and mothers around for them. And especially in these times where so many are split up families, and it's so important that we find, that we let the father and mother have a strong relationship with our sons, even when we don't live together. Yeah. Or if we, many women now get children by themselves. So really, women, those of you who do that, find men around, find some friends or find some uncles that can, some men that can be in the life of your children. It's extremely important. All statistics show that so many of the men in prison, they haven't had a present father. So many of the men and women that leave university, drop out of university, to a very high number of them haven't had a present father. And I can go on and on and on. So fathers and mothers are just extremely important in our children's lives.
Thank you so much for sharing about the rites of passage. I really love that process and can really see how my kids are very, very young, but still how it's so true for them. Like my youngest, she's about to come 2, and then my oldest daughter, she became a sister, and that's also huge transition.
That's also a transition.
Yeah. Like she was, and it was super challenging for her, and like how we were processing this and really to design these processes. Like it's so important that we raise the awareness of this process and find the ways how can I support a 3-year-old in the rite of passage.
Yeah, because it sounds like you're aware of this, Matthias, and in mirroring her in that sometimes she can feel left out, or she can feel lonely, or she can feel not good enough because in her world, it seems like you're having all your focus on the little one that just came. Yeah. And it's okay for her to feel that. And you hold her so she can have that feeling while you hold her and kiss her on the cheek. So she can have that feeling and not have to shove it away, or no, you don't have to feel that, let her feel it, and you just mirror her in it, and then she can move on from it. But if she's not allowed to feel it, she will get stuck there.
Yeah.
So
could you share, so we're going to round off. So I'm very, very grateful for the insight that you're sharing. Super cool. Could you share if anyone want to attend? Is the weekend in Danish or is it in English? And how can people connect to you if they have further questions and want to learn more? What's the best way?
So there's two things. So I have in the second weekend of November, I have a I have a weekend for children that are 7 to 11 year old. Because many times when children come into the teenage age, they are, the relationship with the parents are already they're already split up. They already, they left each other. So many of them don't want to spend a weekend with their fathers or mothers. So I also want to meet children when they're younger and start strengthening their relationship with the parents already then. Should you be interested in that, a father or a mother with a boy or a girl, 7 to 11 years old, you can contact me on my Facebook page. And you have my name here, I think, you can just find me there. And then you mentioned the Rite of Passage in October, in the school holidays of October in Denmark. We have from the 12th to the 15th of October, we have a leadership facilitator training where Arne Rubinstein comes over from Australia to make a training, to train men and women who are interested in supporting our boys and girls in the transition into being a young man and a young woman. So you will simply learn these 3 phases that I shared before. You'll learn everything you need to know to basically support the girls and boys in this process. So if you have any interest in learning how to do that, if you're a school teacher, if you're a scout leader, wherever you are, if you have teens yourself, if you have any interest, then that could be something for you. Yeah. And exactly when we finish on the 15th, later in the afternoon, on the 15th to the 18th, we have a rite of passage for boys and their fathers. So this is where 14 to 7-year-old boys and their father or uncle or, as an important man in their lives, if they don't have the father, they can come and we will take you through a rite of passage. So those who have been on the leadership training, if you want to, you can come and assist. That you can buy a ticket to come and assist and put whatever you just learned in theory, you can put that into practice. So we have these two events from the 12th to the 15th October, leadership facilitator training. 15th to 18th is a rite of passage for boys and their fathers. And if you're interested in that, we have a website called rituelleovergange.dk. I can put it in the comments or something. Yeah. So you just contact me or contact us through that website, and we take it from there. Yeah. And this is a unique opportunity. Arne is coming over from Australia to lead this, and we don't know how many more times he will do that. Yeah. So this is a great opportunity if you have teenage boys to hook on here. And this can be both for Danes and for foreigners. If it will be led in easy spoken English, and therefore we can have people from Holland or Sweden or Norway, Denmark, Germany, wherever you come from. We will do translation where it's needed.
Awesome. I will share all the links in the notes, so it's easy to access afterwards. Again, Jørgen, so much thanks for showing up, and really thanks for the work you do. Like I am, I'm a huge fan of everything you do. So I really want to acknowledge you, and we need it so bad, your work, and we need more men, more women to step up and show the way for our children, and really also the way. You do this work, but you also do this thing where you shared that touched me a lot, how, separating this anger from aggression. Like that is the way. It's easy to, it's not easy, but it's so much easier to kind of organize an event, but then to take charge of the emotion in the way that you shared, that's huge. And to do both, amazing. So I'm really sharing my huge respect and honor and thanks for your work. And I want to share a big blessing for your being and the continuous work you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthias. And I also want to thank you and acknowledge you for doing these podcasts with people who are working with men and bringing out the dads in the world, the dad entrepreneur, I think you call it.
Yeah.
So it's just awesome that we do this so that we can spread this much more. Yeah. So let's just go out there and do this together. Yeah.
Yes, let's do it. Thank you. And for you checking in the live or the replay or maybe the podcast, thank you so much for joining us on the second episode of the Dadpreneur Revolution podcast interview. Next week, we come with another great interview. So the point of this is to support men and dads to level up how they can live their life and stop playing small and give your power, give your beauty, give your epicness to the world so that the future generation can build on that epicness and not on our big, painful wounds that we're all carrying around. So connect together, share these wounds and level up. And if you want to join the Dadpreneur Revolution, you can check in on this page. There is a link to the Dadpreneur group, and they will connect to support each other to create amazing things in the world. So thank you so much for listening and showing up. See you next time. Ciao.
Ciao.